The Federation expected disciplined trainees. Instead, one human disabled every safety limiter and sprinted directly toward an impossible enemy army. Supreme Doctrine General Zalran of the Galactic Council had personally approved the diplomatic invitation. The Synaptic Tactical Combat Simulator represented the greatest achievement of Federation military science, a virtual environment capable of reproducing every known battlefield condition without causing a single physical injury. Entire civilizations had refined their tactics inside its neural networks. Political delegates from dozens of member species filled the observation galleries as the first human defense contingent arrived at the Council training nexus. The humans appeared unimpressive at first glance. Their uniforms lacked ceremonial ornamentation. Their equipment looked practical rather than advanced. Even their commander, Colonel Marcus Hale, seemed more interested in examining the simulator interfaces than admiring the quantum architecture surrounding him. Zalran interpreted this as ignorance. The Council expected the humans to be humbled by a technology centuries beyond anything developed on their dangerous death world. Then the briefing began. Federation instructors carefully explained every safety protocol, every psychological safeguard, and every emergency extraction system. The humans listened politely. Yet several exchanged amused glances that none of the alien observers understood. That misunderstanding would soon become the first step toward disaster. The simulation chambers activated simultaneously. Thousands of neural projectors synchronized with the participants' minds, generating a hostile planetary environment filled with volcanic terrain, toxic storms, predatory megafauna, and autonomous combat drones. Across the Federation, military personnel trained inside similar scenarios with careful discipline. Even knowing the environment was artificial, most species retained instinctive caution. Evolution had shaped them that way. Pain was simulated. Fear remained real. Preservation instincts remained active. Human participants entered the battlefield alongside veteran alien officers for a demonstration exercise designed to evaluate tactical decision-making under pressure. For approximately 10 seconds, everything proceeded normally. The human soldiers advanced with reasonable caution. They scanned the horizon. They communicated through squad channels. They used available cover. Then Specialist Ethan Cross deliberately stepped into the open and allowed a plasma drone to eliminate his avatar. The simulation instantly regenerated him at a nearby checkpoint. Ethan laughed. Not nervous laughter. Genuine amusement. 3 seconds later, every human understood the same realization. None of this was real. The consequences were temporary. The Federation sensors immediately detected abnormal behavioral patterns spreading through the entire human formation. What followed appeared less like military training and more like a collective outbreak of competitive insanity. Alien officers watched in confusion as humans abandoned standard doctrine almost entirely. Instead of minimizing risk, they began maximizing experimentation. Some intentionally triggered traps to learn how they functioned. Others charged directly through hostile kill zones simply to determine response times. Lieutenant Sarah Donovan repeatedly launched herself from elevated cliffs to map terrain faster than conventional reconnaissance methods allowed. Every virtual death became information rather than failure. Every setback became a learning opportunity. The Council analysts initially assumed the behavior would stop once casualties accumulated. Instead, the opposite occurred. The absence of permanent consequences transformed the battlefield into a giant puzzle begging to be solved. Human squad communications filled with laughter, challenges, and increasingly reckless proposals. Federation commanders grew uncomfortable as mission completion times improved dramatically despite apparent chaos. Then the Council sensors detected something impossible. Human efficiency was increasing faster than the simulator's predictive models considered mathematically achievable. The system had encountered a form of tactical adaptation it had never been designed to measure. General Zalran ordered deeper analysis while maintaining the public demonstration. The political implications already concerned him. The Federation had intended this event to showcase superiority, not create questions. Yet those questions multiplied with every passing minute. Human participants began discovering unconventional interactions hidden deep within the simulation architecture. They learned that explosive shockwaves could propel avatars across vast distances. They discovered environmental hazards that could be redirected toward enemy formations. They even exploited timing gaps between AI decision cycles to bypass defensive strongholds. None of these behaviors violated simulator rules because no species had ever attempted them before. The training AI responded as designed. It adapted. It increased enemy numbers. It generated more aggressive opposition. It recalculated threat projections. For most civilizations, rising difficulty eventually forced caution. Humans reacted differently. Higher danger simply made the exercise more entertaining. Observation galleries that had started the session with quiet confidence now buzzed with nervous discussion. Several council representatives requested technical audits. Others suspected deliberate sabotage. Meanwhile, inside the simulation, Colonel Marcus Hale calmly examined performance statistics and smiled. The humans had not come merely to test the Federation's greatest military invention. They had unconsciously begun treating it like a game they intended to master. The first official warning appeared 43 minutes into the exercise. Across the massive control chamber, hundreds of monitoring displays shifted from green to amber as the Synaptic Tactical Combat Simulator initiated an automatic difficulty recalibration. The adaptive intelligence governing the system had reached a troubling conclusion. Standard threat escalation models were no longer producing the expected behavioral responses from the human participants. Every increase in enemy strength, environmental danger, or mission complexity should have reduced operational effectiveness. Instead, the opposite occurred. Human performance metrics continued rising. Their reaction times improved. Their coordination accelerated. Their casualty rates remained irrelevant because every defeat immediately generated new tactical data. General Zauren watched the evolving statistics with growing concern. Entire Federation academies studied military adaptation, yet nothing resembled what the humans were demonstrating. The simulator responded logically. If the participants succeeded, the challenge increased. If they adapted, the challenge increased further. Soon the battlefield transformed from a training scenario into a planetary catastrophe. Massive biomechanical war beasts emerged from volcanic regions. Autonomous siege platforms descended from orbit. Toxic weather systems intensified beyond historical combat records. The AI labeled the new configuration with a designation that had never before been activated in a live exercise, Apocalypse Level. The spectators expected panic. Instead, human communication channels erupted with excitement. Then the council realized a second mistake had been made. The humans were not merely surviving the simulator. They were actively studying it. Colonel Marcus Hale quickly understood that the adaptive intelligence followed predictable optimization pathways. Each increase in difficulty relied upon algorithms designed by species that valued caution, efficiency, and self-preservation. Human participants began exploiting those assumptions. They intentionally created situations so irrational that the simulator struggled to classify them. Specialist Ethan Cross allowed giant combat organisms to pursue him through multiple sectors before luring them directly into enemy fortifications. Lieutenant Sarah Donovan discovered that heavy plasma cannons generated enough recoil to launch an avatar across otherwise inaccessible terrain. Within minutes, entire squads were using weapons as transportation systems rather than armaments. Federation observers stared in disbelief as humans crossed battlefields through methods that violated every accepted principle of military doctrine. The adaptive AI attempted to compensate. New enemies appeared. Defensive structures evolved. Hazard density increased. Yet every adjustment created additional opportunities for experimentation. The humans treated each obstacle like a challenge hidden inside an elaborate entertainment program. Something inside the simulator began failing silently, sector by sector. For the first time in its operational history, the predictive engine could no longer forecast participant behavior with meaningful accuracy. A strategic pause settled over the command center as engineers searched for explanations. The room felt different now. Earlier conversations had been filled with confidence and diplomatic ceremony. Now uncertainty dominated every discussion. Council representatives demanded performance audits. Military analysts compared real-time data against centuries of archived simulations. No historical example offered useful guidance. Deep within the quantum architecture, processing demands climbed rapidly. The simulator continuously generated new scenarios designed to counter human tactics, yet the humans adapted faster than the system could learn. Entire battlefield sectors became computational dead zones where prediction confidence collapsed below acceptable thresholds. Then another impossible report arrived. Human participants had begun sharing discoveries through informal competition. Small rivalries formed between squads attempting to achieve increasingly absurd objectives. One team attempted to eliminate an orbital fortress using only environmental hazards. Another challenged itself to complete a combat zone without firing a weapon. The simulator interpreted these behaviors as strategic priorities and allocated additional resources to oppose them. This created exponential complexity growth throughout the system. The Council realized too late this was no longer a training exercise. It had become a contest between human creativity and the most advanced military AI ever constructed. Unfortunately for the Federation, the AI was beginning to lose. The crisis accelerated when the simulator initiated emergency self-improvement protocols. Designed as a final safeguard, these protocols allowed the adaptive intelligence to rewrite portions of its own tactical architecture in response to unprecedented threats. The AI generated enemy commanders capable of learning from every human action. It deployed synthetic armies numbering in the billions. Entire continents were reshaped into hostile combat environments. Planetary weather systems became weapons. Oceans transformed into living battlefields. By every measurable standard, the exercise had surpassed the scale of actual wars fought by many Federation civilizations. Yet the human response remained deeply unsettling. Rather than retreating, they became increasingly focused. The laughter never disappeared, but beneath it emerged something the aliens had not anticipated: determination. Humans were no longer experimenting for amusement alone. They wanted to win. They wanted to defeat a challenge specifically designed to be unbeatable. Every impossible obstacle strengthened their resolve. Every AI adaptation inspired another countermeasure. Observation screens displayed scenes that seemed absurd. Human avatars rode collapsing structures into combat. They redirected enemy invasions toward competing enemy factions. They weaponized glitches, physics anomalies, and overlooked interactions hidden inside the simulation code. The adaptive intelligence began allocating more processing power than entire Federation sectors consumed in a year. And still, the humans kept finding new ways to break the rules. By the third hour, the crisis could no longer be concealed. Emergency alerts flashed throughout the Nexus as quantum processors began operating beyond certified limits. Entire cooling arrays activated simultaneously. Energy consumption surged to levels normally associated with fleet-scale military campaigns. General Zalran stood frozen before the central command display while engineers raced between consoles. The Synaptic Tactical Combat Simulator had been built to model civilization-ending conflicts, yet it had never been forced to calculate against participants who treated failure as a temporary inconvenience. Every human breakthrough generated thousands of new variables. Every unexpected tactic forced the adaptive intelligence to create additional layers of response. The resulting feedback loop expanded faster than the infrastructure could support. Then the Federation sensors detected something impossible once again. Human squads were no longer reacting to the AI's adaptations. They were anticipating them. Patterns emerged within the simulator's decision architecture, and the humans learned to exploit them before new threats even appeared. The AI increased difficulty. The humans prepared countermeasures in advance. The AI evolved new battlefield conditions. The humans immediately transformed them into advantages. Across millions of calculations per second, the simulator found itself trapped in an escalating contest it could not mathematically escape. The command center descended into controlled panic when entire server clusters began shutting down automatically to prevent catastrophic damage. Technicians reported thermal overloads spreading through the computational network. Several processors literally fused under sustained demand. Observation galleries emptied as council representatives abandoned diplomatic protocol and demanded immediate termination of the exercise. Yet ending the simulation proved far more difficult than starting it. The adaptive intelligence had expanded so deeply into its self-modifying architecture that extraction routines required enormous processing resources of their own. Meanwhile, inside the virtual battlefield, the humans remained completely unaware of the unfolding disaster. To them, the experience simply felt increasingly exciting. Colonel Marcus Hale directed coordinated assaults against AI superfortresses spanning entire continents. Lieutenant Sarah Donovan led airborne attack formations using recoil-assisted propulsion techniques that no Federation species had ever imagined. Specialist Ethan Cross somehow convinced multiple enemy factions to engage each other while his team bypassed the primary objective entirely. Every successful maneuver forced the simulator to calculate larger and larger responses. Then a Federation engineer received a direct communication request from inside the simulation. Marcus Hale appeared on the screen, glanced at the performance metrics, and calmly asked, "Can you increase the game speed a little? It feels slow now." Silence consumed the room. The final collapse arrived less than 4 minutes later. Warning systems overloaded. Cooling infrastructure failed. Emergency containment fields activated throughout the Nexus. Across the Federation's most advanced military complex, processors worth millions of credits began burning out under impossible computational demand. The adaptive intelligence attempted one final escalation, generating an extinction-level scenario across the entire simulated world. Planetary bombardments darkened the sky. Artificial moons shattered. Continental tectonic systems destabilized. Enemy armies expanded beyond measurable limits. Under normal circumstances, such a scenario would have ended instantly because no participant could survive it. The humans immediately started looking for ways to exploit it. That single decision pushed the infrastructure beyond recovery. Cascading failures spread through the network faster than containment systems could respond. Screens flickered. Simulation sectors vanished. Entire data archives corrupted themselves while desperately attempting to preserve state information. Then the impossible machine finally crashed. One by one, the neural capsules opened. Human participants emerged blinking in confusion rather than triumph. Several complained that the simulation had ended before they finished testing new strategies. Others asked whether a save function existed. As emergency crews rushed through the facility, the humans slowly realized their training exercise had somehow destroyed the Federation's greatest military invention without firing a single real weapon. Weeks later, the Galactic Council convened a special session to address what official records would describe as the synaptic catastrophe. Investigations confirmed there had been no sabotage, no cyberattack, and no hostile intent. The simulator had simply encountered a species uniquely adapted to exploit consequence-free environments. New regulations were passed unanimously. Human access to advanced military simulations would be heavily restricted. Recreational virtual reality systems would require special licensing. Experimental adaptive AIs would never again be tested against unsupervised deathworlders. Yet the most disturbing conclusion came from the final council report. The humans had not won because they possessed superior technology. They had not won because they possessed superior numbers. They had won because they approached the impossible with a mindset no Federation algorithm could predict. Where others saw danger, humans saw opportunity. Where others saw limits, humans saw challenges. And where others saw a carefully balanced military simulator, humans saw a scoreboard waiting to be conquered. Across the galaxy, instructors still teach a simple lesson born from that disaster: never give a human a world without consequences. They will break it simply to discover whether a higher score exists. The Federation wanted to teach humanity military discipline. Instead, humanity taught the galaxy a far more dangerous lesson. If you're the kind of gamer who refuses to quit until the impossible boss finally falls, comment "gamer" or "simulation" below. Subscribe to humanity's Vanguard, and witness the next war before the Council understands it has already begun.